Well, hello, welcome to Redbeards on 6th Avenue. I'm Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now and Pittsburgh Sports Live. It's a Penguins wake today. I thank you all for joining us. Hey, if you're downtown or in the city, come on over to Redbeards. The first beer is on me. So, nothing to talk about today. Now, we're not going to have all of the cute graphics, and I really can't diagram too many plays today because we're kind of working with a little bit of a skeleton thing here to do the live show. But, as always, want to see you on the chat boards. Hop on there, questions, comments. Now, let's start with the fundamental thing here. Not everyone is getting traded. Not everyone is at fault. Not one player isn't at fault. The Pittsburgh Penguins really came up against a team that knew how to beat them. Barry Trotz instilled a very patient, a very smart system, the Islanders. He instilled this back in October. The Eastern Conference has been set up to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, and as you saw in Columbus, beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that is simply to button it up. Do not make mistakes. Do not beat yourselves. Make the other teams beat you. And as we saw with the Penguins, 4 straight games, they could not beat themselves. That I think that is the biggest factor going into the offseason. Subset to that. You go back to January. Head coach Mike Sullivan said, okay, y'all have a great vacation. Come back with buy-in. Buy-in, buy-in, buy-in. Well, you can see which players bought in and which players didn't buy in. I don't need to go down the entire list. If you don't know which players didn't buy in, you weren't paying attention. Now, so let's first of all, we'll tackle Evgeny Malkin. And we'll get to Phil Kessel. And they're actually, birdies were chirping in our ear this morning on a couple players who were very close to being dealt, apparently, in January and February. I'll tell you about those, too. Let's start with Mike Sullivan. Oh, fire Mike Sullivan. I even heard it this morning with a couple reputable guys. Sullivan reached his expiration point. The long-form answer on Mike Sullivan is quite simply this. If his players were 24 and 25 and they were star players tuning him out, the coach goes. When the players are 32, 33 and tuning him out, well, he gets the benefit of the doubt and you trade that player. Okay, now, lay that as the baseline for the Penguins offseason. As we go forward now, it's only one day past the offseason. The Penguins haven't even cleaned out their lockers yet. Let me jump on to the YouTube chat here just to make sure. The mic is scratchy. Yikes. Here, let me try. Is this any better? Is that any better, Amanda? Where was I? Oh, in terms of the Penguins off season. Use that 32, 33-year-old as the baseline. If Sullivan has lost the room, he goes, but I don't think he has. I think a couple players looked at Sullivan, his teachings, his desire to push them in an entirely different direction, his desire to make them play hard, play down low, and play simply just didn't resonate with at least one player. That one player wanted to play a different way, and another player's like, yeah, I want to play with you. You get where I'm going with this yet? And if you remove one domino, I think that star player won't be as corrupted by the winger. Get where I'm going with this yet? Okay, so good. I want to keep up on the chat here with everybody. Mike Sullivan will stay for now. He will be, hitting year 5 essentially. First, they're going to trade Phil Kessel. Now, the reporters last night, me included, were furiously poring over tape and trying to find some background noise because one of the cameramen reported to the rest of us and again, I didn't hear it, and I'm not the first of the locker room reporters to say this, so I feel like I have a little bit of cover. It was told to us that Phil Kessel said, I won't even be here next year. Now, it's minutes after a loss. Take it with a grain of salt. He popped off, cameraman standing right there. So I do take it with a bit of salt, but I also know it's a realistic possibility. In fact, it's more than realistic. It's probable. We did hear from sources back in February. The Penguins weren't going to trade Phil Kessel, but they did begin laying the groundwork. They've known for a while. The Penguins are going to lurch to the simple, to the gritty, to the hard-to-play-against style that takes care of the puck and does all of the right things. Phil Kessel was not that player. And Phil Kessel's been here now 4 years. That's about his lifespan with any organization. I think he was in Toronto, 5.5? He was in Boston a little less than 4, as I recall. The Penguins can get a little something for him and free up $6.8 million. So write it down now. And I know some of you are going to be upset. No, don't trade Phil. Phil Kessel most likely will not be a Penguin. What we can't account for here on April 17th is the trade market. We can't account for other teams saying, no, we're good. We don't want a 32 or 33-year-old who wants to play his own way and isn't coachable. Because let me tell you something. The New York Islanders are opening a lot of eyes. Barry Trotz is opening a lot of eyes. All these underpowered teams with very good coaches who are beating more talented teams are opening a lot of eyes. And the trend is going to be away from talent, away from creativity, and towards speed, towards coachability. Well, you're an adult. You know where Phil Kessel fits on that spectrum, right? I don't need to go into too much of that. That's why I place the probability that Kessel is a Penguin at the start of next season. I'll put it at 10%. Only the trade market collapsing and the Penguins saying, fine, we'll keep him, will keep Kessel around. Now, so we've been here 5 minutes here at Redbeards on 6. By the way, autographed Franco. Wonderful place to come and watch the games. I'll show you the big screen TVs in a little bit. I'll make sure the mic's on here. Actually, you know what? We don't need this thing. We'll put that there. And I'm going to... Let me know if the mic gets scratchy with this thing back on. So there's the possibility if the trade market collapses. Because, look, Evgeny Malkin is not going anywhere. And I wanted to get into this a little bit on the show as well. I know a lot of you want to talk about Evgeny Malkin. And I know he's taking just tons of flack. I want you to look to 2017-18 for Evgeny Malkin, when he was skated between Carl Hagelin and Patrick Hornquist, two very linear. Sure, come on. Look at this, see? Tableside service for Redbeards. Come on in the shot. Say hi to everybody. I had to get a little bit of lunch, too. Look at that. Boneless hot wings. Hungry yet? And Wednesdays at Redbeards is all-you-can-eat wings, $12.99. How many? I wonder what the record is, actually. I'll have to find out. But talking about Evgeny Malkin, I want you to look at last season when he played between two very north and south, very linear players. How much better Malkin was. Take this to the bank. Malkin, even at 32 years old, is still, unfortunately, a little bit corruptible. He's still a little bit malleable by the people around him and by the guys in the locker room, by his friends. He seems to actually pick some bad friends, or at least some friends who lead his play astray. I mean, who was his best friend before Patrick Hornquist? James Neal. Who's his best friend now? Phil Kessel. And those two players, I think especially, put some bad habits or some bad attitudes in Phil Kessler or in Evgeny Malkin's game. Evgeny Malkin's an untouchable. Evgeny Malkin will not be traded unless he says, okay, guys, I want out. I've seen what my buddy Marc-Andre Fleury is doing in Vegas. I'd like to go. That's the only way it happens. Because no team is going to offer the king's ransom for a guy who's 32. Let me find my fork. I'm staring at these. I want to dive into it so badly. I'll read and I'll eat. It's all part of the advertising. It's product placement, I guess. When you put Malkin between two linear players again. Let's say Patrick Hornquist is on the right wing. Or, I don't know, perhaps whoever they replace Phil Kessel with will undoubtedly be a guy in the new mold. They're not going to go get another Phil Kessel type who wants to freelance, who wants to skate wide, who wants to play his own way. That right wing will be a north and south guy. Dominic Simone on the left wing. All of a sudden, you have a little bit there. Or you put Jared McCann on the left wing. Brian Rust, it doesn't really matter. A speedy puck retrieval guy on the left wing and a linear guy on the right wing. Evgeny Malkin gets dragged back into last season's game in which he almost won the Hart Trophy. That's really the core of everything, is getting Malkin between two guys who will mold his game into what the Penguins. So don't say that Malkin can't or won't. Malkin, unfortunately, is too much a product of what's around him. Okay. Corey asks, I wonder if Gino was still injured. Yeah, he wasn't 100%, but you saw the third period last night. He was big last night. Just didn't have enough help. I know you all Kessel fans, and I don't want to pile on Phil Kessel. That's not my style. What you saw last night in the third period, go back and watch those shifts specifically. Malkin got low in the zone. Malkin had puck possession in those gritty areas. Didn't have a second or third stick to help out. The Islanders were able to surround him and outnumber him. And that's the same reason that Patrick Hornquist struggled in the series. Hornquist would be surrounded and outnumbered. You know, he was in the crease where there'd be three Islanders, and he's like, oh, well, Hornquist looked slow and old. No, he didn't. That's a perception that is manifesting itself, you know, in opinions, but it's not the reality. The reality was Hornquist was outnumbered where he plays his game. And not enough Penguins fought to get in there with him. Not enough sticks were there to help in the battle zones. That's the huge problem that happened with the Penguins in the series. Need to move Gino to wing and bring in Hayes. No. No, that's... Evgeny Malkin is a wonderfully competent center. Relax. He's still one of the best 15 centers in the league, maybe best 10. It's, again, getting him around the right wingers. Enough with Simone, Jamie says. Second line in Wilkes-Barre, maybe. Jamie, let me go straight on ahead on Dominic Simone. First of all, you've got an NHLer who's making $750,000. Those kind of guys are important in the salary cap era. We can agree on that, correct? Now, you can tell me he's a third or fourth liner. With his lack of hands, I would tend to agree with that. You cannot deny the number of scoring chances spike when he's on the line. So if you get him on Sidney Crosby's line, and Crosby, let's say, over the course of a season, because of Dominic Simone, gets 50 more scoring chances over the course of a season. And that's a low number, actually. Because, actually, let's see here, 10% would be 100 scoring chances. That's 10 more goals for Sidney Crosby. Worst case scenario, 5 more goals for Crosby. How important is that? 5 more goals for Crosby, let's say 3 more goals for Gensel, or vice versa. Now, what kind of value are you getting for that $750,000? If the other line mates are getting 8 more goals, yeah, you want to see Simone finish. Good Lord, if that kid had any finish, he'd be making $8 or $10 million a season. And it may come. This is only his, first full season in the NHL. We've seen guys progress, and the hands come when they learn a bit more patience, when they don't grip so tight, when they're able to breathe. It might come. Simone might not be done. And even if he is done, if this is Dominic Simone, salary versus benefit, again, if he gets Malkin 100 more scoring chances through the course of a season, would you pay $750,000 for that output? Hell yes, and twice on Sunday. Amanda asks, who was my new favorite to win the Cup? Yeah, I think the Capitals. I thought the winner of the Capitals-Penguins series would win the Stanley Cup. Obviously, we're not going to see that. I really think Washington, they're still chasing the Penguins' ghost, aren't they? I mean, they're chasing that back-to-back. You watch Ovechkin, and he's going for it. This is Ovechkin emboldened by success and no longer fearing failure. No longer fearing that Penguins ghost, no longer fearing all of this. You're seeing Alexander Ovechkin untethered from his past and with nothing to lose and everything to gain, and he's a very dangerous player like that. If, when Kessel goes, does Rust stay on a line with Gino? Unknowable, unfortunately. The great thing about the Penguins, I thought, especially in the last 6 weeks, everything began with the Stadium Series game and ended with Game 1, unfortunately. But let's start with the Stadium Series game when Hornquist and Bukestad were paired. No one saw that pairing coming, but you don't want to break it up. And by the way, I think Hornquist is a Penguin next season. I know a lot of fans are tossing his name out there as a potential trade guy. Look, he's got 4 more years at a fairly valuable contract. And at his age, he's going to be 32 next season. Just look at what he did last night. He was the one guy willing to just barrel in to the crease, one guy willing to put up a fight. This season, Patrick Hornquist became one of the emotional leaders. And that happened really in November. When the Penguins went on that 0 for 10 skid, or was it 1 for 12, it was that brutal skid in November. Hornquist was the guy in the middle of the room who really became the glue guy and the beating heart of that team. You do not trade that easily. I can't overstate the value of a guy who makes the team heart beat, who picks everybody up, who brings that intensity and brings that battle. Because once you lose it, that's when you're really in trouble. Think no further. Go no further back than the 2010 Penguins. When you lose the heart of the team, it's you're done. You can have all the talent in the world. If you don't have the ticker, you're toast. How was the ice in Pittsburgh? Wasn't bad. Ice in Pittsburgh will never be Edmonton. It certainly wasn't as bad as New York. Wasn't as bad as what I saw in Nashville in the Stanley Cup Final back in 17 when actually walking on the ice felt like carpet. It was that slow. But no West Coast team as a favorite for the Cup. I like Vegas a lot. I think we might see a rematch, Washington-Vegas. How fun would that be? I'd really be curious to see how Fleury handles that. Fleury was brilliant until the Cup Final last year. He was brilliant again last night. 15th career shutout. He got the donut. Got the donut, eh? It wasn't jelly, it was sprinkles. Yep, John Penguin, you're correct. Horny's fire is worth every penny. Had we got that from half the team, we'd still be playing. I agree, actually. I still, my analysis was, I stand by it. Hey, we got like some celebrities walking in. I don't know if he wants to be on the air. You're like, and I'm just going to out you. Chase Williams walking on past us, from Channel 11. Okay, so let me get to the chats here. Should JR move 58? Aaron asks. He was hurt in the 17 postseason, made rookie mistakes in 18, and underperformance now in 19. He could bring a king's ransom. I don't know a king's ransom. These are so good. The thing with Letang, and if you trade him, you need that puck-carrying presence. But what you would need to get in return is that puck-carrying presence, power play ability, but less turnovers, more simple game. It's going to be a very difficult trade if they choose to deal Letang. Really difficult trade. I'm not saying it won't happen. And even his salary for what he is to the Penguins at $7.85 is quite affordable, too. He's one of those guys where, sure, he could be had if a team feels like he would put them over the top and is willing to pay for it. I just don't know how many teams will be willing to pay what the Penguins would need in return. And we'll tell you this while we're talking about trades. Source in our ear this morning told us that two Western Conference teams were very close to acquiring Olli Maatta back in January. Actually, at the same time that we were writing, Maatta could be had. Apparently, he was very close to being had. Didn't get the details why the trade didn't work out. My guess is, based on the timing, was the Penguins had a lot of injuries. They didn't know what they had, and at the end of the day, they opted for a bit of stability with Olli Maatta. Now, Olli Maatta, when he's rested and ready, is a smooth-skating, slick defenseman who is always in position. He's tight to the blue line. He's really good. The problem is Maatta has worn down. He wears down very quickly. Obviously, past health ailments notwithstanding. Perhaps they have an effect. I don't know. But when Maatta wears down, he does wear down quickly. A lot of you are right. He does look so much slower, and his value does diminish. I think as he gets further from those injuries, you get 2, 3, 4 years away from, good gosh, cancer treatments and everything else that Maatta went through. You get further enough away from those, and you get healthier. I think that so a team will look at a 24-year-old Olli Maatta and see a lot of value. Consider him prime trade bait as well. Like I said, he was almost dealt in January to a couple of Western Conference teams. L.A. was, I know, one of the teams that sniffed around pretty hard. I don't know the other team. Let me check here. Wing sauce choice. Always go hot. The hotter the better. Bring me the hot stuff. By the way, y'all come on down. Yins come down to Redbeards. Yeah, you got the TVs up in that, and we'll talk some hockey. I'll buy Yins a beer. Ain't even got to be no iron. We have to get the beer sponsor to pay me, too. Where does Teddy fit in this scenario? Teddy Bluger will be the fourth-line center next year. I really liked what we saw with McCann on the left wing. I think that fits where they're going to go with him. At center, McCann is too conservative. That fits in with his career arc until he got to Pittsburgh. As a center, he is too concerned about defense, and there wasn't enough go on offense. On the left wing, call it a mental thing, where he just went for it. And he was, I thought, a real spark plug kind of winger. He's a top, he takes that Carl Hagelin spot. I really think so, where he can be that puck retrieval guy with a great forecheck and a bit of grit Heck, a few more cheeseburgers, and the kid adds some jam, too. Teddy Bluger, I thought was terrible on left. Well, I shouldn't say terrible on left wing, but he wasn't good enough left winger. Not even close. He just he looked lost. However, when they put him at center, he was a duck to water. I think you're going to see Bluger the fourth line center next year, and that's a really good thing. Matt Cullen is going to kick it around. He's going to want to play, but I think his family's going to say, all right, enough. Let's go. Time to get on with life. Okay, let's see here. Malkin and Crosby had different takes, Steve noticed. Crosby blamed himself. Malkin blamed everyone but himself. Trade Malkin for D. That's an interesting... I hadn't realized that, Steve. Because obviously you check out PittsburghHockeyNow.com. We had the big Malkin story that's kind of going national. A lot of outlets picking it up and blasting it out. Malkin's comments, we have to realize we're not champions anymore. Maybe they had a better system. Maybe they have better players and so on. He really took his team to the shredder. You're right. I also think that's honesty. Malkin didn't absolve himself from blame. He certainly was very blunt before the playoffs, hoping he could turn the page. He didn't like his season. He was very honest about that. So, right church, wrong pew, or maybe a couple seats down. How's that? Add in Malkin's self-deprecation, too. But that's just Crosby being Crosby, too. Crosby will never throw anybody under the bus. Come hell or high water, he's going to be the guy that steps up and takes the blame.